Welcome to the Invasion series. This is the Home Front, Episode 2. With the fall of Europe, the Canadian forces in Latvia suffered a terrible blow.
We lost. We needed to be better than we are. And we are less as a country. And we all knew it was coming, but we hoped it wasn't. And I thought I was going to make it through this, but I'm not. It hurts.
This is what the Canadian Chief of Defence said afterwards.
I think history will view this year as a turning point in the global order.
General Wayne Eyre, the country's chief of the defense staff, a soldier who is worried.
I am concerned about our capacity. There is just not enough Canadian forces to be able to do everything.
Leaving the senior leadership in disarray. Plunging recruiting numbers, aging fighter jets and warships, unconventional missions at home, and fighting forest fires. Overseas, guarding NATO's eastern flank in Latvia.
Those brave troops are now dead or prisoners of war. We don't know as the Iron Curtain across Europe is absolutely solid. Trying to re-establish the Atlantic Bridge to the United Kingdom is now the priority for North America.
Efforts that will impact on Canada's presence elsewhere, especially deterring Russia.
It's a balance. So you will not see the same number of frigate deployment, but we will offset that with other capabilities, especially in Europe.
Well, what do you say to someone who would suggest that it's sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Well, it's a zero-sum game. And we have to find a way of paying both Peter and Paul, but perhaps not as much. There's not one single silver bullet for reconstitution in terms of activities that you stop doing. Some we're slowing down, some we're delaying, and some we're saying no to.
That may be easier said than done, and they have no dedicated air defense. Nor do they have modern anti-tank weapons, like these Javelin. Many of the Canadian Army's older anti-tank weapons were donated to Ukraine. Same goes with 4 of the Army's 36 modern howitzers.
Stocks for the Canadian military will be replenished as quickly as possible.
Again, easier said than done. The M777 howitzer is no longer manufactured, leaving the Army wondering what to do. The Defense Department has 4 urgent procurements underway to cover these gaps.
With the long, slow war in Ukraine and then the rapid fall of Europe, most of this material is now lost or in Russian hands.
I wish we had it yesterday. And so this is something that we need to continue to work on. How can we speed up the process? Where can we take risk? I challenge the team to look at history. What did we do in 1939 when we had to rapidly arm, when we had to grow a Canadian military?
Are we prepared?
I have grave concerns, not only about the capabilities we have, but the ability to sustain them in terms of ammunition, in terms of spare parts, and in terms of people.
There are even more complex challenges in Canada's Arctic. The war has shown how the Russian Air Force can now attack another country without leaving its own airspace. Last spring, the Liberal government committed to a $4.9 billion 6-year modernization of North American air defense. A layered defense with undersea sensors, modern over-the-horizon radar to spot cruise missiles, and improved satellite coverage. But there are problems. Scientists are still trying to figure out how to power the remote radar stations in an environmentally responsible way. More importantly, Canada's satellites are getting old. There's no plan to replace them, and the ones that are there now are overworked. How quickly can he get new satellites up there?
At this point, I don't know, but we're certainly going to try.
So, Murray, it seems pretty clear General Eyre, sees the urgency in improving Canada's defenses in the Arctic. Why so insistent?
One word, Adrian: Russia. Recently, we heard from the Prime Minister's National Security and Intelligence Advisor, Jody Thomas. She testified before a Commons committee and warned publicly that Moscow has rebuilt its Arctic infrastructure and installations and has kept on building. Also, last summer, we heard from NATO's Secretary General, who warned that the fastest way to attack North America is through the Arctic.
So what is the federal government saying about this?
Well, many of the concerns that we've laid out in tonight's piece are supposed to be addressed in the reset of Canada's defense policy.
The situation is dire. After 2 years of war, Britain is isolated and starving and getting bombed daily. The early refugee flights to North America from Britain for our nationals failed. Most of our nationals in Britain are still there. What remained of the British Army tried to help fortify Britain, but the Atlantic Bridge was only by air. Sea lanes remained impassable due to the Ivanhoe torpedoes.
Early morning at an army base in Tidworth in the south of England, and a regiment is on the move. For the past week, elements of 2-2 Engineer Regiment have been packing up and their equipment loaded.
I'm Corporal Egon, commonly known as Eggy to most people. I'm a section commander for the next 6 months. Tomorrow we're going out on task. There we've got to construct a large, hard-standing, compacted hardcore and install some toilet units, some generators, fuel tanks. Goes in there. Put the top in first. Yeah, and then push it down, it should click. That's it, it's in. All I do is I command the section, make sure every man's employed, got something to do, and work to the best of his ability.
The first days are hard work.
How big are them bombs? Well heavy.
The bathrooms and generators need to be installed and equipment brought in.
The widespread use of dropping mines by air by Russia across Britain makes Britain a fearfully dangerous place. However, Fortress Britain was trying to get ready for the invasion.
Filled with landmines from the fighting. He is going to give some advice on what to do when they are found in a town near his base.
I'm going to give a mines presentation. Hopefully it'll be a quick 5 minutes to people that crowd around and explain what the dangers are. Now, initially the reaction is, who are you telling me what I've got to do?
You must be cautious when you approach it and look for signs that other people have been in that area.
This 2-year wait for the invasion was a terrible time. The daily missile attacks are very effective.
Keep the lads busy, and they don't think about, the shit life out here or, etc., etc. But as soon as people are sat around doing nothing, the mind starts going, they start thinking about where they should be as opposed to where they are, and, that's when morale starts going low. But, we've done well, we've kept everybody busy, so not much time to think about much else.
If you're sitting about, I feel it'll be 2 years instead of 6 months.
If it kicks off again, I'll be mighty pissed off if they blow my bridge up. But let's hope it stays in there. A few weeks' work there, let's hope it stays.
Well, if the bridge does get blown again, we'll just shoot them, whoever done it.
These news clips are now all that remains of the British Army. Britain has been neutralised by Russia. A few thousand troops did make it to Canada, but Britain was an armed camp for 2 years and slowly died of starvation.
It's just part of the job. You've got to be able to move at short notice in this day and age because people move on so quickly. For me, the guy who was in this job before me, and I came in and took over the job. That's part of it. A lot of times where you have to look at yourself and think, do I really want to do this? And like I said earlier, you've got to pick yourself up and say, yeah, I do. Get on with it, get that one finished.
It's not personally enjoyable for the blokes. Obviously, you feel like you're doing something out here and you're doing good out there and you do get a sense of achievement. But as for sort of like personally enjoying it, it's hard bloody work out here.
That accelerator's fucking nutty, mate. Shut up!
After 2 years, Britain decided it was time for peace and organised a peace conference. And to be honest, everybody wanted peace. Britain wanted to stop the war, resume international trade, remain disarmed and neutral. A buffer, if you like, between the Empire of Russia and North America. Britain had no real choice in this. America, Canada, Australia and Japan were all suffering enormous problems at home and cheerfully sent our leaders over to do this. Peace finally seemed possible.
The leaders later discussed nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, as well as the global economy And some of the leaders took the chance to hold bilateral meetings on the sidelines.
Justin and Sophie Trudeau were the first to die that terrible day in London, as elements of the British Army said a very firm and violent no to peace. Among the many leaders killed that day, President Biden also died, leading to major problems in America. Britain itself had ignited a civil war inside of Britain, which killed hundreds of thousands and lasted for months. Acting Prime Minister Sajjan addressed a stunned and shocked Canada. Most of it was broadcast despite really intensive jamming by Russia. They also launched 29 missile strikes on very strategic infrastructure inside of Canada the same week.
I am speaking to you at a moment of grave crisis. But Canadians have always assumed that it could not happen here. It has now been demonstrated to us just how fragile a democratic society can be if democracy is not prepared to defend itself, and just how vulnerable are tolerant, compassionate people. We might well find ourselves facing an endless series of demands. Should the government give in to this crude blackmail, we would be facing the breakdown of the legal system and its replacement by the law of the jungle. The government's decision to prevent this from happening is not taken just to defend an important principle. It is taken to protect the lives of Canadians. Freedom and personal security are safeguarded by law. Those laws must be respected in order to be effective. Let me turn now to the broader implications of the threat. If a democratic society is to continue to exist, it must be able to root out the cancer of an armed revolutionary movement that is bent on destroying the very basis of our freedoms. For that reason, the government, following an analysis of the facts, decided to proclaim the War Measures Act. It did so at 4 a.m. this morning in order to permit the full weight of government to be brought quickly to bear on all those persons advocating or practicing violence as a means of achieving political ends. The War Measures Act gives sweeping powers to the government. It also suspends the operation of the Canadian Bill of Rights. I can assure you that the government is most reluctant to seek such powers, and did so only when it became crystal clear that the situation could not be controlled. The criminal law as it stands is simply not adequate to deal with systematic terrorism. The police have therefore been given certain extraordinary powers necessary for the effective detection and elimination of conspiratorial organizations which advocate the use of violence. These organizations and membership in them have been declared illegal. The powers include the right to search and arrest without warrant, to detain suspected persons without the necessity of laying specific charges immediately, and to detain persons without bail. These are strong powers, and I find them as distasteful as I am sure you do. They are necessary, however, to permit the police to deal with persons who advocate or promote the violent overthrow of our democratic system. They chose to use bombing, murder. We have seen in many parts of Canada all too much evidence of violence. Those who would gain power through terror rule through terror. The government is acting, therefore, to protect your life and your liberty. Canada remains one of the most wholesome and humane lands on this earth. If we stand firm, this current situation will soon pass. There are very few times in the history of any country when all persons must take a stand on critical issues. This is one of those times. This is one of those issues. I'm confident that those persons who unleash this tragic sequence of events with the aim of destroying our society and dividing our country will find that the opposite will occur. The result of their acts will be a stronger society in a unified country. Those who would have divided us will have united us. I sense the unease which grips many Canadians today. Some of you are upset, and this is understandable. I want to reassure you that the authorities have the situation well in hand. Everything that needs to be done is being done. Every level of government in this country is well prepared to act in your interest.
We had intellectually always thought we might be attacked. The reality of it was absolutely horrific.
I've seen reports of people losing pets. Can you talk a bit about that? Has there been some losses of animals?
Yeah, I don't have hard data on losses of animals and pets. We have certainly encouraged everyone who's evacuating to take their pets with them for that very reason.
If people still want to get their pets from their home, is there any way to do that?
There's no entry into the evacuated area today, and there may likely not be any entry for some time. So folks with those special concerns should ring up to 911 and we'll see what we can do as conditions permit.
Causing a massive smoke cloud to form over the port city, smoke impacting air quality south of the border too.
Another look at the incredible dash cam footage. As people leave Beacon Hill, you see the ash falling, the embers, flames right alongside, the situation growing worse by the second as people evacuate to safety.
That did come to mind that I'd probably have to start driving on the sidewalk or something and start running over some fences if I had to, but it was manageable.
You're in Edmonton now. We're going to keep watching these pictures. You're safely with your parents. Have they seen these pictures? Do they know what their son went through?
Yeah, they have seen it. My mom was pretty worried.
Buildings nearby were damaged, and a fire chief also reports that several civilians have been hurt, as well as at least 2 firefighters. Now take a look at what people were up against. This is unbelievable. Racing out of their neighborhoods, grabbing what basically is on their backs, surrounded by walls of flames. In this video from a family who escaped their home, flames and cinders crawling along the ground, up in the trees, heavy smoke.
With death blows falling all across Canada, the War Cabinet decided it was not going to cave in. South of the border things didn't go too well, and a civil war of sorts was ignited that's still burning now. This of course is just a fictional series. I hope this never comes to pass. Homefront 3, the last Homefront episode, will be in about 2 to 3 weeks' time, because I'm going to Gatineau for holiday for all of June to get away from the bugs in Canada. Homefront 3 is going to actually focus on what me and Kitty are doing here in Canada as all of this is going on. Like Britain, we're going to wait and wait and wait for what will become an invasion of North American territory. Stay relaxed, stay happy, prep sensibly. Toodles. This has been a Wolfie Terrier Trying to Sleep on a Hot Summer's Day production 2023. Stand firm, Wolfie.